today is the last session, so I do not want to write introduce a new topic and work on that, because we have already finished our project, and let's just revise it. Okay, so let me get into few tricks which are necessary. So let us play around with lists and see how it works. Reports. Okay, here it is. So these are few small shortcut way of doing things in Python. So let me take a list. So list as X. We can do something like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this is our list. So you can do, as you know, you can do list slicing. List slicing is nothing but you can split list into smaller parts. So that is called as list slicing. So list is actually zero index. That means if you do x of 0, it's you get the first element. And in Python, it is not present in C++ and C, Java, like that. So you can also negative index. That means if you do -1, you get the last element. Okay, similarly, if you do -2, you get the last but second element. Okay, so you can traverse from this side and you can traverse from the other end using positive and negative indexes. Of course, you can get the last element something like 4, because this is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so that is about how you can access the indexes using negative elements. The list slicing is nothing but you want elements from 1 to say 4, so you get only this. So this is called as list slicing. And with list slicing, you can solve a lot of programming puzzles that you see in Leet Code and CodeChef and stuff like that. So this is necessary for such quick implementations. So that is about list slicing. And then you can, so in one of the classes I think I showed you, but let me just add few elements, 2, 3, 4. So one of the few things that you need to know is there will be some kind of elements in your array or the list, and you need to kind of remove the duplicates. So as you know that sets cannot have any duplicates. What you can do is you can convert this x into a set. How do you convert? So just set x. So if you do set of x, it removes everything that is duplicated, and it gives you unique elements. And then what you can do is set also can be converted back to list. So now you are if you do x is equal to list of set of x, now you get x without any duplicates. So this is one of the tricks. Okay, and it is also possible that there are instances where you want to reverse the list. So you can do something like this. So it reverses the list. So this is nothing but list slicing, and internally you can also provide in the as a third argument in the list list indexes. So it will rotate it. Okay, so you can do just colon -1. So these all things you kind of keep doing it, and it gets into your head, because these are like few patterns which you need again and again. So removing the items from list, reversing the list, these are like always coming up in your projects, anything that you work on. Okay, so that is about it. And it is let me give you some more examples. There is also something called as join. So there is a function called as join. What join does is, let me give an example. For example, and then maybe some number, house number, and something like Okay, something like this. So if we have a list of strings, now there will be some kind of maybe you are trying to put this into CSV file. CSV file is nothing but comma separated values file. Maybe you want to just put it as a string, the whole thing that is in the list. So what you kind of do is you do join of x. So what is happening in join is, so all the elements that are inside here, you can join all of these strings into one string, and then you can specify using what you want to join. So I'm using comma here. You can in fact use colon. So you can see that this string is colon separated. Okay, similarly you can do something like, you can give spaces like this, so it gives us space, and tab like this. You can also do new line. So this new line, when you try to print it, will be a new line. So these are all tips and tricks you need to kind of remember. So that is about it. So in maps there are like nice not tricks such as map, reduce, lambda functions, and all these things. You can look that up, but just keep that in mind that there are a lot of such things. Okay. And it's also possible to write loops in one single line. So the syntax will be something like what is inside x now. Let me just initialize one. Okay, something like this. So you can also do something like x for I in x print I. So you can do something like this. So it's like you can keep loops inside in a single line and tell what to do. Okay. So this is also called as list comprehensions. So there are like several things that you can do. Okay. So you just need to like sometimes it's this is shortcut of something like writing for I in x and then print I. So this is the program. So shortcut is this one. So it returns also a list which is containing none elements. Don't worry about this, but this is how you can print. Okay, this is called list comprehensions. So they, if you are preparing for interviews, these things are keep these things in mind. So you just search for list slicing, list reverse, removing elements from set, and then joining the lists into a string, and things like that. Okay, so that is about the tips and tricks. Okay, so let us try to revise what we have studied so far, so that we have a complete picture of what we have done, and what you can do with the code. So you can play around with the code for some more time. That is even after the bootcamp is over, what you can do is you can go to GitHub. This GitHub. So there are issues. So what I'll do is I'll also create new items. So what we can do is this is specific for this particular bootcamp. So what you can do is you can just pick these items. First of all, you create a GitHub account. It is just like creating an email ID. So just create a GitHub user user, and then assign this to yourself, and then you work on it and you check in the code. So that is like, it takes about 20 minutes to learn about how JIT works and stuff like that. So you do this. So what it gives is, first thing is how to work in the open source projects. So open source is nothing but nothing but all the projects that are source code is visible. Okay, so source code is accessible. So GitHub is one of the top websites which hosts this kind of open source projects. Okay, so you can work on this, and then what you can do is, if you improve, or if you improve your coding in this repository, you can also look up for a lot of repository. I can show you a lot of repositories here. If you go to issues explore, okay, so there are several open source projects in on GitHub. So you can search for something like projects, and then you can download the code and you can start working on them. So you need to get used to how to do this. So what I request, or what I recommend is, you go to our project, because you are familiar with this code, and fix some of the bugs. I'll add some more items here, fix some of the bugs, and learn about how to use JIT and how to get used to the code. Okay, so once you are done with this, you move to open source project, and in your if you contribute something in your in the open source area, if you add that in your resume, it carries a lot of value in your resume. So try to do that. So instead of what it tells the recruiters or the technical team is that you're passionate about the coding and how the things are built. So try to do this. So that is about it. So the first thing is, you try to download the code and pick up some items here, and you can also clone this, and then you can add your own code and work on that. For example, you can also add an if slightly advanced, you can also add a new database with new API, and then you can somehow relate the current API that we are downloading and storing it in database, and some other API related to COVID. Say you can get coordinates of COVID areas. So relating to this too, you can build some kind of artificial intelligence, saying, okay, in this area this many people are affected, and you can show it in a graph and do something like that. So once you start doing that, ideas will charge up and come up. Okay, so that is about it. That is the core idea about how to get involved in the project. So since we are like 10-12 members here, so you can just go here, and we can work as a team. Okay, so you can create new issues, and you can create new features and work on this even after the bootcamp is completed, because this repository is particular to this batch. Okay. So you can do that. Please do that, and it carries a lot of value on your resume. Okay, so that is about it. And then let us try to revise from the beginning what we have learned. And I do not want to keep a new concept today. Okay, so we will just revise and keep learning about, so that we don't forget, and it helps you to start with the projects. And I request you to not to leave the habit, because right now what you're trying to do is, you are allocating 1 hour per day for learning. So I request you to continue this, give at least half an hour or 1 hour, so that you have hands-on with the code, and you understand how things are done. So coding is basically, it's a skill, just like cycling or running marathon and things like that. So if you just stop doing it, then the skills will start eroding. Then it becomes difficult to get back and get back to the shape. Okay, so let us just revise. So in the first session, we learnt about devices and how the chip works, and how the hard disk is there, and how what is the role of RAM. Okay, so and I hope the quiz that was hosted for this session, it was helpful. It also helps you to explore more on the how computers work. So first thing you need to understand is computers can only understand bits and bits, that is like zeros and ones. That means it's only signals. So from that we are moving towards the assembly code, and then we automated that assembly code to something called as a high level code. So the reason that we cannot use assembly code for every program is because it is hardware dependent. Okay, so from machine code we move to assembly code. From assembly code we move to the high level languages. And then we also learned about what is cross compilation. Cross compilation is nothing but there is a machine which does not support the binaries that you are building on your PC. So you kind of download the compiler, and then you cross compile it to the target machine. So if in fact you can if you want to do some kind of hobby programming and hobby hardware related stuff, you can actually buy this Raspberry Pi, and there are like Adreno boards. So that costs about 3,000 to 4,000. So that is the basic hardware, and you can it supports Python, and it also supports Wi-Fi interface and all these things. So you can look up YouTube, and you can find out how the Raspberry Pi works, and you can do some projects. So in one of the previous classes, I had one student. He was working as a teacher, but he was the Raspberry Pi enthusiast, and he learned some coding, and he's trying to do something. So like just like finding the maze and solving, if there is a hurdle, so it stops and comes back and goes to a right position. So such things you can do in the Raspberry Pi, for which if you are writing code in C++, you need to do the cross compilation. So but it supports Python, so you can try to do that. So it will be nice. So all these things if you start doing, and it helps you to understand technical, and also it helps you to change job, and it gives a nice impression on your resume. Okay, and the reason that we are moving to Python is because we are trying to become more hardware independent and operating system independent. So that is why what is called as portability. Portability is first in terms of operating system. That means we don't have to care about what is the operating system that is lying in the, underlying. So it could be Windows, Mac OS, and it could be Linux. So we saw that. So that was the reason that why Python and languages like Java solves it. And we move to data types. So so if you're preparing for interviews, make sure that you know why the data types exist, and how the Python makes it much more easier to define the data types and automatically binds it. So that is called as dynamic binding. So we learned about that. So the basic idea is, the reason that you need to have data types is to tell the CPU that how much data should I process in one shot. So that is the idea behind data types. So it will write, so if it is an integer, it will if it's a 32-bit machine, it will do it one shot, because 32-bit is nothing but 4 bytes. So if it is double, that means if it's if number is really big, so it is 8 bytes. So if it's a 32-bit machine, it has to wait for 2 cycles. That means in one shot it will get 4 bytes, that is 32 bits in another, and it will store it into the register, and then in the next shot, that means in the next CPU cycle, so it will get another 4 bytes, and it will store it into the register, and then it will do the operation. So that is about the data types. In Python, it is dynamically resolved. Okay, so in the runtime, so such languages are called as dynamically typed. So this is one of the most popular asked questions. So when I interview people, I will try to kind of understand their understanding about data types. So these are the usual questions that I ask. Okay, and you need to know about Python specific data types. So these are vastly divided into numeric and dictionary, boolean, set, and things like that. You need to remember lists, you need to remember dictionary and set, because once you start telling I know about dictionary, so interviewer will start asking you okay, what is the specialty of dictionary. So specialty of dictionary is as you just remember this kind of diagrams in your mind, and you can give such real time examples. So it will be really nice to understand the concept. So one thing, you won't forget the concept. Second thing, you will be able to explain it clearly to someone else, and also you can use that in your program. Okay, so integer is just a number. So a is equal to 1 is an integer. A complex number also we can do, but we don't use it unless you do kind of mathematical operations. Okay, and then float is nothing but like 3.14, the value of pi, that is float. So it has by default it has like 2 decimal points. And dictionary, boolean, all this we'll see in a moment. So strings is nothing but it's concatenation of the characters, that is a b c d, and then you can put it into uh, in a in a beats. So that is collection of characters is strings. Okay, list, here as we saw a moment ago, here the questions could be: how do you slice the list, how do you reverse the list, how do you remove the duplicates from the list. So these are the questions that can be asked, and not just questions, these are like tips and tricks that you can use it in your day-to-day programming. And then the complexity, the usually when you're choosing any data structure, interviewer will be asking you like, why are you choosing that data structure. So you must be able to explain that, okay, list is like a train bogies. Like if you want to search something, you have to traverse through for the first bogie till the last bogie. So that is like it takes a lot of effort to search the elements. So for searching, list is not good. It is just good for storing and iteration. So if you have 100 elements, it's good, but if you're putting 1,000 or more elements, you need to think of better data types. Okay, so these are the properties and operations that you can do in the list. So tuple is the property of the tuple is it is immutable. So maybe you will be asked something like, okay, once you so where can you utilize tuple. So you can think of this program. So we saw this program, the reports. We have used yes, we have used tuples in a lot of cases. I'll just show you here. So if you, so we are yesterday we did graphing, right? So in the graph, we wanted a list of x points and the list of y points, that is the coordinates. So if you return two elements from a function, that will come as that will be coming as a tuple. Okay, so if you just print here what is the written value, it will be coming as a tuple. Tuple is nothing but something like this. So it is same as list. Okay, so here we have two elements x and y, so this is actually tuple of list. Okay, xy coordinates, and then something like this. This is x coordinate and this is y coordinates. So the reason that we are using tuple is that in draw graph should be could be implemented by someone who is using your function. This could be your library. So one person has written the framework, and other person as a user developer, you are just making use of that function. So you should not accidentally change the values of this. So because if you change the values of this, it will affect the values inside the library. So that is the reason we use tuples. So what by saying this, what are we actually telling? Tuples are immutable. That means they are constants. So you cannot change the values inside the tuple. Okay. So we also saw the examples in the first class. I think in the second class. So that is one place where we used. So we have used in several places. I'll show you. Okay. So if you're iterating through the dictionary, so this is a tuple. So when you do something like this, dictionary D is equal to A1 B. Let me just take two elements in dictionary. So if you try to get keys, is just like this. So if you try to get D dot items, so you can see that it returns an iterator, so dict elements, and inside this, key and values are put in a tuple. So how do you collect these tuples? Is like this, X and Y. It's not subscripted. Okay, it's not subscripted. Okay, so this is how you kind of get it. So this is a tuple inside tuple, and then you can if you simply type X, it's a tuple. Okay, so this is exactly what we are trying to unpack. So unpacking is nothing but, so you can take two values from X. So A will have A and B will have B. That is nothing but, that is exactly what we are doing here. Okay, so if you are asked to give examples of tuple, you can say that, okay, while iterating dictionaries, we do dot items will return tuple. Okay, so that is what we have learned about tuples. Okay, so key points to remember: this is not modifiable. Okay, and set is almost same as a map in terms of accessibility. That means if you're searching something and you don't want any duplicates, set is the best data structure. That is because searching set is of like O of n, 1. That means it searches really quickly. Okay, so important points to remember in set is it doesn't allow any duplicates. Okay, that is the main thing. That is why we are using set to remove the duplicates from the list. Okay, and then dictionaries, as we have discussed a lot about this. So dictionary is something like you have a key and value, and remember this train station. So if you just remember the train station, there are almost all data types that you can see around in the train station. The bogies are like lists, and dictionary is like the clock room. So in the clock room, you just go to the clock room and give your token. So he knows exactly where to find it. So he doesn't search from first box till last box. He knows where it is, so he will just go and search it. Similarly, just in the library also, you give your library card and the book number. So the librarian knows where it is located. Okay, so these are the typical real-time examples of dictionary. So remember that. And then mixable data types we have seen in JSON. While processing JSON, there is a dictionary inside dictionary, and there is a list inside dictionary, and things like that. So we have covered that. So this list of keywords, if else statements, okay, there is nothing to remember. This is just logic. So loops, in Python, loops is very simplified. That means you just do for x in some iterable object, and then you just finish the looping. So in order to explain loops to anybody else, remember how we counted coins. So that is about that. So if you haven't done exercises, please do it, and you can in fact submit it to GitHub as well. So you'll get used to that, and you can contribute to open source projects. Functions, they're just shortcuts. Remember, one of the questions that interview might ask is, okay, if I do not have written statement in function, what is the default return value? So, or will it give a error? So by default, Python functions return none object. So that you need to keep in mind. And these are the arguments, and it does not have any specific type, because this is dynamically typed language. So in C++, you can do like int function name and then arguments. So here you don't have to do this, because data types are resolved in the runtime, because it's dynamically typed languages. Okay. And then you need to remember, of course, yeah, now you know that the intention of spaces or tabs here, and this is called indentation. Okay. So that is about it. So okay, coming there is a keyword called as pass doesn't do anything. Like if you think that you can put code later and then you just want to make it work, you can use pass. So that is about it. And scope of variables, it looks in the function scope, that is a local scope inside the function. Here if there is a variable I, so first it looks inside this block, and then it goes to the bigger block, and then it goes to the function, and then it goes to the global area, and then it finds the built-in keywords. Okay. So this is scope of variables. So a lot of questions can be asked here. So you can interviewer will write something like, okay, x in global space and x in function, the same exercise that we did while learning about this. Okay. So that is about it. Copy by reference and copy pass by value. So most of the things in Python is always copy by reference. That means we have seen that once you pass a list into a function, which is a global list, if you change that list value inside your function, the global function, global list also get modified. That means you are passing by address. So this is your RAM, and inside the RAM, these are the elements. You modify this, and it affects in both of the places. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So that is about the key points about it. And coming to the objects and things like that. So this is like our base example where we learned about objects. Objects are nothing but something which has two things, that is attributes and operations. So just remember the car, so and it everything comes into mind. So you can look at anything and you can define the object. Okay. The reason is it is like simulation of a real world inside the computer. So user input is just input input, and things to remember in input is everything that you type and it returns is in a string. So it is the programmer's duty to convert it into the data type that you want. So if you're entering a number, it comes as a string, you need to convert that into integer, and then you can do. And then we also learned about files. The main thing to remember in files is it is located on hard disk, and hard disk it is just like a pizza, and then there are some elements inside that. To get that, so once you open a file, you get a file descriptor. Once you get the file descriptor, you can in a loop you can either read line by line, or you can read character by character. You can read everything in one shot. So that is called as file descriptor. As we in one of our classes, we saw that while loading JSON, the file descriptor moves from the beginning and end of file. So beginning is marked by your file descriptor when you open the file. End of file is denoted by EOF character, that means end of file character. That is how the operating systems, the programs, know that I have to stop reading the file. Okay, so these are the main points. And then you can open it in read mode, write mode, append mode, and things like that. By default, Python open function supports text file. So that is why you cannot use open an Excel sheet and just dump it. So because programs doesn't know how to interpret that. So that is why you need to use libraries. Okay, those are the key points. Data interchange formats. This we have covered extensively. So JSON, we have been using it from the day one of the project. The reason that we just remember the history, why the JSON and XML came into picture, what is the problem that it solves. So it solves the problem of talking with two different processes or two different softwares in various other computers. So there is a you can represent an object using XML or JSON. So there are several other notations of data interchange or data exchange formats, such as YAML, um, uh, HTML, and all these things. Okay, so that is about data exchange formats. So this is our visualization. This is like, okay, this is the object, and how do we represent it in JSON? It is like this. And how do we represent the same thing in XML? It's like this. And XML has user defined tags, and HTML has fixed tags. That is how and the XML and HTML differs. So ML stands for markup language. So it is called markup language because we are marking the data between the tags. Since there are two different formats, it can be and it addresses the same issue. It can be interconverted. That means you can convert JSON to XML, XML to JSON. Okay. And then we learned about exception handling. This is an important concept. So this is the actual syntax, but in most of the times we use try and except. Okay. How do you know where to put try and except? Wherever the program crashes, you need to put. So you need to identify the critical elements of the program. So that is what we did in our project. We finished the project requirement, and then we started hunting where all the critical statements are present, and we started putting try except block. The reason is that so program will crash and it won't execute the statements that are next to that. Okay, so that is why we need to use exceptions. And we looked briefly about regular expressions. Regular expressions are a way to extract or find things in a string. So string has a certain pattern. So and those patterns can be defined in a mathematical way. That is a regular expression way. And then you can pass that to a library called as RE. It stands for regular expression, and then you can do all these operations: extract, find, search, match, and then what did we learn? So unsubstitute. You can do re.sub to substitute a particular regular expression. So that is about it. So one of the important questions that interviewer might ask is, what is the difference between match and search? Match tries to match from the beginning of the string and returns the first search, but searches the entire string. Okay. So assignments, packages and modules. So the reason that we need to know about packages and modules is because how we organize the code and what are packages. So packages are nothing but how does Python recognize them as package. So if it has double underscore init double underscore dot py, that means it's a package. So in Python 3.7 that is not required. So they have improvised it, but the concept is still the same. If it has init file, you can recognize that as a package. So modules are nothing but .py files, and then inside modules we have functions like this. These are all modules: dashboard, Excel, API. Okay, so and we learnt about debugging. This is one of the important concepts. Like you can halt the program using PDB, and then you can take control and you can run the program as if you are the interpreter. And then we learnt about logging module, because the reason that we use logging is because you cannot always print onto the monitor, because there won't be any monitor at all. That is the reason. And then you can also control the levels of logging. So in our project we saw that you can put up to all the logs like info, if you're dumping all the objects. But in production you just enable a couple of them, like critical error and warning. So you just need to know if things has gone wrong. Okay, so in development system you can put this, and while deploying you can disable at one place. You can tell that okay, this flag should be disabled, and you can deploy that. Okay, so that is about debugging. And we learned about little bit about object oriented programming. So object oriented programming is about basically a thought process to imagine or to represent the objects, real world objects inside the program. So the reason that we need to do that is because we humans are hardwired to think in terms of objects. That means once we recognize some objects by seeing or listening to that, we kind of categorize that and keep it as a separate box. And then there is another object, and we try to make a relationship out of that. Say for example, there is a laptop and there is a table. So laptop is a different object and table is a different object. The relationship between them is you try to keep the laptop on top of table. So that is how we humans think, and then that is how we try to do that on programming, because programming becomes much easier and easier to imagine the process. Okay, so that is the basic idea of object oriented programming. And there are several things how to need to do to realize this. That is like we need to create object. So this is one of the main function which initializes the object. So if you are asked in interview which is the construct, what does init function do, you must tell that without even calling the function, init gets called, and init does the initialization of that object. So init is not a constructor. So if you are asked to explain more, then you must say that there's a misconception that init is a constructor, but actual constructor is a double underscore new. This guy is actually going and getting the memory, and init is only putting the items, initializing the items. Okay, so since new calls init, it looks like it's a constructor. Okay, so that is the key concept. And about inheritance, we learned that there was a object called as animal, class called as animal. Then we inherited it to mammal. So in mammal we wrote only 2 lines of code, and we inherited all the code that was written in animal class. That means inheritance helps us to write less code, and that is also called as code reuse. But that is the thing to remember. So this is about it. And we also learned about unit tests. So unit test is the code that tests your code. So basically you try to run the program and put print statements and verify it, but it is also possible that you cannot. So if you have written like 100 lines of code, you cannot test all the 100 lines of code every time that you run program, right? So you need to automate it. So in order to automate it, we write unit tests. So you take function and then you try to pass some parameters to that particular function that you have written and expect something out of it. So we learned about processes in various levels of testing in the software industry, and then we are focusing here, and we wrote unit testing at this point. Okay, so you need to remember. And unit testing, one of the key points that you need to remember is we are using a library called as unit test without spaces, and there is a class called as test case. So there are several classes. So one of the classes that we inherit is we define a class, and then we inherit from the unit test one of the classes, and all the code is available to us, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay, so that is about that. And we started with project requirement. So we learned the basic things quickly. and then we moved into project. So in project we had a requirement, so we tried to break the requirement. So this is just a text requirement. You just imagine that this is given by a business analyst or someone who is customer facing guy, and then you kind of break this requirement into thoughts. So that is what we did in our brainstorming session, and this was the module breakup, and we defined interfaces with that, and then we started writing code. Okay, so this is like a key concept, how to break things, and how to express in terms of code, in terms of skeletal code. Okay, so the analogy that you can remember is like, if you're trying to learn how to draw faces, either you can start with eyes, and you draw eyes, and then you try to draw nose and lips. So while you're drawing, you get lost without the context. Maybe the nose and lips are slightly not in the same line. So once, for you who is drawing, it looks nice because you're sitting and drawing for a long time. So if you show it to your brother, sister, or any one of your members in family or friends, they will say that, oh, kuch to gadbad hai. So the reason is that you are like too much imbibed into your drawing, and it is difficult to find the errors while making it. So after 2 days, if you look at the same drawing, you will have the same feeling as your friend had. That is because um, your so how not to get wrong in the first place. So there is a structure or a way to draw faces. Like you need to draw like a straight line, and then you need to draw a line, horizontal line. So you need to put eyes on top of the horizontal line, and then nose and lips onto the vertical line. So then you won't miss the symmetry. So similarly, so you can think about this analogy, and think about the skeletal code. So the reason that we did skeletal code, so, is that we should not go wrong in somewhere in the end of the project. So that is the reason that we try to write skeletal code, and then we fill up the rest of the things. Okay, so that is the idea. uh, Flow diagram, this we learned, and we learned about one then we started going day by day. We started taking one component, and we try to understand how things are there. So it is not just to learn about web scraping, it is to learn about how, it's like hacking, to learn to hack. So you need to understand how the things work, and then try to manipulate. So that is what is basically hacking is. So that is what we try to did in all of our project sessions. So we understood how the page is formatted, and how that HTML is formatted. So that is in tree structure, and we download the page, we parse it, extract, filter, and transform it. So this is also called as an ETL. ETL is nothing but extract, transform, and load in data center world. So similarly we are doing this. So if you are working in big companies such as like ANZ, EMC Square, and all these people, and NetApp, so these guys do data center jobs. So actually what they do is they get various different kinds of formats, and they try to convert one format to another format, and they store it. So that pattern is called as ETL, extract, transfer, and load. So if you have learned about web scraping basics, so that the mental pattern is the same thing. So now you can understand the bigger things. Okay, so that is the reason that we try to pick up concepts which has bigger impact. So that is about scraping. We learned about the tree structure, and one of the things that you normally do is to convert it into Excel sheet, because that is the language that most of the reporting people, such as managers, the customers, and people who are not well versed with the code, and well versed with the JSON structure and XML structure, for them you need to form reports and process some things. So that is why we learned about reports. So we hacked into the Excel sheet. How did we hack? We understood that Excel sheet is a bigger object, and it's a file object, and inside the file object we can have Excel workbook, and inside the workbook we have the sheet, and inside the sheet we have rows and columns, and then we try to put in the data. So just remember that it's not only about the Excel sheet, it's about developing a pattern to hack into systems. So for example, if you want to try to do some kind of text processing in your project, so now you have got a pattern in your mind, so how to break things and find out the interfaces. That is what we are trying to learn. It's not just about Excel or web scraping. And then we learned about mail, how to send mail. So we hacked into the mail protocol. In fact, you can, if you have a Linux box, you can just go to your Linux box and try to send a mail. So I try to do that. So it's like let me show you. So it's like this is my Linux box. You can do something like mail sudo mail. So this tells you that there are no mail, so you can, I think if there is some command. Okay, mail. Okay, this is how you try to send a mail. So this is from, and then CC you can do something like x@gmail.com, and subject, it keeps on telling you. So these things are like, now you can type the subject and then you can end it. Okay, so that is what we learned. So that is like the people used to do that in command line in olden days, and then there is a graphical interface just to do that. So that is what is your Gmail and Yahoo Mail and Rediff Mail and things like that. Okay, and then the reason that we learned is to able to understand how the library works, because you are not using the graphical user interface, we are using um, the libraries. And in order to do it object oriented way, we need to understand how the objects are inside the mail. That means we saw about MIME multipart, because we are sending multiple items into that, and then we embedded text, we embedded the attachment, and yeah, these two things we embedded, and then we sent it as a mail, and all of you might have received the mail. And that was it. And we also revisited the project. So we finished the project here, and then we came here, and I was telling you that the whatever we have developed so far, it is a garage project. Now you need to make it production quality project. So that is why you need to identify the things that can go wrong, that we did this exercise. So I am attaching diagrams in assignment, so that this comes to your mind, and all the things that we discussed at that moment. So we took two elements, two components, JSON input and news, and we listed out what are all the things that can go wrong. That means the external website could be going down, or it can send a malformed object, and our JSON will crash and it won't do any job, and customer will be unhappy. That is what we discussed, and we wrote code for that, and also we wrote unit tests for that. If you remember, I think we did 3-4 test cases, and then we put the test case, and it automatically keeps running all the test cases whenever you run it. So that is about that. And we also took a new requirement to work with the database. So we understood how the databases work. So I tried to start from the scratch. So I started from the file, why you cannot share the file, and then there are access problems, and there are permission problems, there are security problems. That is why databases are served. That means it comes as a process, and there should be a service, database service running, and then inside this database there are tables, and inside these tables there can be a relationship between tables, This is called as RDBMS. That means Relational Database Management Systems. Such systems are Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL. All these are relational databases. And there are some other databases we discussed briefly about NoSQL databases. That means it is not SQL based. SQL is nothing but the query language that we shoot into the running database, and it gives us the table, okay, contents of the table. So usually database will be hosted in another PC, and code will be in one PC, and in fact GUI code will be in another computer. The reason that it is separated is that, say for example, if the system which where the code is running, if it goes down because of some reason, the database should not be affected. So similarly, if a database goes down, GUI should not be affected. Maybe there is an error handling saying that database is down or something like that. So it should not stop all the services if one of the components go down. So that is one purpose. Second thing is to have security. So there is a special security for to logging into database systems. Okay. So we created two tables from our project. So we derived state cases and news. The reason that we did was to draw some kind of graphs, and we can do some analytics on top of it. So that is about the database access and the programs around it. Okay. So that was you can take its assignments, and then you can upload it on GitHub as well, so that it gives you an idea about how the professionals work. And we also learned about graphs. There is a library called as matplotlib. So we did some kind of graphs. So this is our statement: make a bar chart with x-axis has state names, and y-axis has this is a simple graph. You can do a lot of analytics, like you can compare weekly data, you can compare state by state data, you can make it as a pie chart. You can do a lot of interesting things because the database is the same thing. So using the same data, you can presentation can be different. So that will be nice. So that is about all that we did. So I wanted to cover one of the concepts called as command line application. So that got slipped because we put two more concepts. Okay. So this was the new requirement that we did. You can yesterday I was explaining you how you can compare this kind of get this kind of bar charts. Okay. So that is about all we did so far, and these are all the questions that can be asked in interviews if you're preparing for interviews. And what next? So I got this pic from javapoint.com. So what next is now you could be doing any of the projects in any of these areas. So now we have learned about how to break things into different parts and connect it using Python. So we have an imagination, and from that imagination we wrote the code, breaking that into skeletal code and components. Now the same thing can be done given any requirement. You can just say for example, I was working on one of the other side projects. So it was doing something like it was changing the face of one person, like it can morph it to some other person. So that new person is he's not existing person. So we use libraries such as OpenCV, and so it is an open source, and you can do a lot of image processing, face related projects, such as you can, in fact, you can write code onto something like your Adriano boards, that is like a Raspberry Pi or something like that, and you can use camera, and you can make it to run around your house, and you can write image processing library, and you can identify the face. So it can identify the face, and it can print that okay, this guy is this person. Okay. So in fact you can put that code, if you have access to that code, you can do a project like you can buy CCTV cameras, and you can put this Adriano or this kind of open source hardwares, and you can actually you can find out whether the person who is coming to your house is your known person or not. So those are the interesting stuff they can do with the image processing applications. Applications, you can do very quick web development using Python. There are several libraries such as Flask, Django, and things like that. So GUI applications, you can use PyTK, I think. There are a lot of GUI applications, and console-based applications. Yeah, you can, whatever you did, it's all console-based. Software development you can do, and scientific and arithmetic. There are libraries such as, you might have heard about Pandas. You might have heard about NumPy. So those things are related to scientific and numeric data. So you can do predictions. You can do you get a lot of open source data already in the internet. You can collect that, and you can try to do predictions, such as there is also data, something like you can get all the people's sugar level and age level, and also their country and things like that. You can do some operations and find out what what is the age group and where people are mostly affected, and then you can get what is their food culture, what is their culture, and what is the where they are staying in the globe, and all these kind of things you can do in this kind of. So those are examples. So audio video based, there are open source libraries for audio video based applications. You can use that, so you can do this kind of applications. So you can first to jump into all this, first you finish the project by hand, by your own, download the code and play around, and then jump into this. So that is what I had. So if you look back, so far what we have learned. So these are the concepts that you have learned so far, and additionally you have learned how to connect to databases, and how to create graphs. So all these patterns will be repeating in any of your project. That means you take any project, all these four items, that is web scraping. So it's not web scraping, it is about extracting, transforming, and loading the data. So that kind of pattern will always be there in any given project, and there will be some kind of reporting. For that purpose, I have designed the problem statement so that it contains all this kind of repeating patterns. So all these things will help you once you do the project by your own hand, and you can refer the code that is already in GitHub. Okay, so I hope that now you can, even if you haven't written a lot of code, and haven't done any assignments, I'm sure that now you can at least read the code and understand how the things are connected and called, recognize the functions, recognize global variables, and things like that. Okay, and uh, I hope you can split the bigger problem into smaller pieces, and now you can transform your ideas to code. So this you can do only by catching up to the assignments, and then learning things. So if you haven't started, please start. So it will be a nice exercise. So we have written about more than 800 lines of code so far. So from day 1 to day 20. So you can do something like this to find out number of lines of code. So this is the command on Linux. We can run this command and find out. Not here. There are about 950 lines of code. So there are, of course, there are JSON files and other files, but even if you remove that, it crosses about 600 to 700 lines of code. So if you start writing the project, you'll be having like a lot of experience. It's like working in a team. So I request you to go to GitHub and download the code and work on that. So uh, it's not like you finish this today and then you forget about it. So try to do like maybe a weekly, maybe you spend 1 hour or 2 hour on a weekend, and then so that you don't forget things. So if you're preparing for interviews, so I have told you what are the concepts that you need to understand, and then you prepare for interviews. Now we can look back at the interview questions and understand what are they asking. Okay. So that's all I had. So I just wanted to give you some tips and tricks for interviews, and since this is last day, I wanted to revise everything, and just wanted to make an impression in your minds that you have learnt a lot of things, but unless you kind of do hands-on, it's not going to help you much. So I request you to do the hands-on if you haven't done already, and once you start writing the code, I can also help you to do in much better way. So we'll keep in touch in via GitHub and WhatsApp group. So even if the bootcamp is over, so if you're writing code and if you're stuck, so I'll be able to help you. So just ask me what are all the problems that you face. Okay. So that's all I had for today. So we have learned a lot of things. Please try to do it on your own. Okay. So that's all I had. Congratulations, and thank you.
Okay.